greatest show on earth.
Hi, guys. Just wanted to let you know that Friday night, April 4th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm going to be going live on my channel, Set Streets and Eats on YouTube, with my buddy Tim Hyde. We're going to be coming to you live from Steel City Con at Monroeville, Pennsylvania. And we're going to announce something that's never been done before. And it's going to be big. And it has something to do with fast food history. Let's just keep it vague. You're going to want to tune in April 4th, Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, live on Set Streets and Eats. We'll see you then.
Cup. Cheers, everybody. I can't have my canteen because it's too loud. But welcome back to the Con Culture Combo.
Yes.
I'll drink out of this muted.
Still not that muted, though. There's a lot of ice in there. That was a problem I had is the last episode we had, but there was a lot of ice movement.
I'm not a savage. I'm not going to drink with no ice. That's great.
You can drink without ice. A fantastic bottle of red wine. Yeah.
Wow.
This is the last glass, so I've definitely had a couple, guys. So enjoy the Con Culture Convo. Welcome back for another episode, you guys.
So Tim will be more coherent than normally is, since he's 3 sheets to the wind. Hey, yeah, welcome back. I said that already.
4 sheets.
4 sheets. There you go. All right, awesome.
Anybody knows me knows me. I love me a good glass of red wine, so I'm ready to go, baby.
Yeah.
I will say is I made a fantastic spaghetti carbonara for dinner. Oh my god, it was delightful. Oh, very underrated.
You're living the single life.
Oh,
not to its best, ending, but you're living it. You are living it.
Yeah, I mean, from your perspective, having all the like 30 kids you have and your wife and all that, it would be. Yeah, well, it would be really hard to make spaghetti carbonara for more than like one other person because each one has to be almost made individually. So it's like it would be like remaking it 4 times for 4 people, and that would be a lot.
Good Lord, you just exhausted me. I had fish and chips for dinner because I'm in jolly old England. I know it looks like it from behind me.
Chadio.
Jolly old England. I'm right next to the London Bridge
in Las Vegas. Oh yeah,
Arizona. Lake Havasu, Arizona, or the actual London Bridge. Yeah, it's awesome. They got that little mini England down there under the bridge. It's got the red phone booths and fountains. And
I've never been
restaurants. Oh, dude,
I've just gotten drunk on the river. That's all I've done.
Yeah, that's what most people do.
Yeah, well, they have like a yearly. Back when I was like 22 or something, we went there, and it was like 110 degrees. It was miserable, but they did the where like you get in this car, you bring all your floaties, and they bring you like a big ass bus all the way up to the top of the river. They let you down, and they pick you up to the bottom, and then you go up back top. It was actually pretty awesome. It was like 4 hours long, though, 5 hours long. And I'm like, everybody's just wasted at the end because it's so long. And all you're doing is drinking. You can't eat anything because you're literally floating down a river, drinking stuff out of tubes and stuff.
That's true.
It was a good time. It was fun. Yeah. Not anymore, though. That sounds terrible nowadays, but
yeah, no, that everything you just described was like, no thanks. No, there was definitely some people enjoying some libations on the river today, but it's a really.
How's the temperature?
Oh, it's gorgeous. It was. Now it got up to 90. It was 95 yesterday. Got up to 90 today.
90 in March already. Holy shit!
Today, I was out there at like 1, and I was not sweating. Which, no, if you don't know me,
so it was snowing. It was snowing. Got it.
Yeah, basically, it was like probably about 75, and I was walking along the river there by the London Bridge.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, it was absolutely gorgeous. I sat on the bench for like an hour, had a shaved ice. It was quite a day.
You have those moments when the weather is perfect. Like you and I think you and I, the experience that we had where the weather was beyond perfect was when we went to Maui and went to the backside, and it was just us on the backside. There was nobody on the whole area, and we literally just sat there and just sat on the rock and lay down that long grass and just watched the ocean for like 45 minutes, and it was so nice. Oh my god,
awesome.
It was lovely.
That was nice.
Oh
yeah. Did you, not to switch gears, but did you see the Marvel announcement today?
So I'm a little under the weather. So if I sound more like a man to everyone listening to this and watching,
Don't worry. You already talked about drinking red wine and eating spaghetti carbonara, and you didn't sound like me. So there's no worries there.
Yeah, in case you were wondering, I'm not the manliest man on the planet. So I do have a hot girlfriend, okay? So screw you. Okay? And she does exist. Nobody's met her, but she exists.
Pillow is, shaped like Gwyneth Paltrow. I don't know.
I mean, I do have body pillows.
The Marvel announcement, I'm sure everybody saw it, was basically just a camera fading back past cast chairs. So you're just seeing the names of the entire cast. But first of all, I had to Google half of them. I don't know half these young people. I'll say it.
That's good, technically, isn't it? Because there's some new blood in the Marvel universe. I mean, a little bit.
It's basically the entire cast of the first X-Men movie. Also,
like who? Give me an example of who you're talking about. Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, James Marsters, not what's her face Oscar winner that played Mystique, Jennifer what's her face, but the first one, Rebecca Romaine Stamos, which is now Rebecca somebody else. Yeah, Jennifer Lawrence is not in it. It's the old Rebecca Romaine. The old Mystique, the first Mystique. Wait, I'm gonna stop you right there. Like I said,
and the young versions, by the way.
I'm completely naive to this. Is this? Yeah. What movie are we talking?
We're talking about the next Avengers movie, the one that Robert Downey Jr. is playing Dr. Doom in.
Okay.
And this was the announcement for it. There's probably 25 to 30 names in this in this fade back announcement.
Yeah, that's Marvel. That's Marvel calling you a cease and desist right now. By the way.
Yeah, really. And Pedro's in it, but it ends on the last chair with Robert Downey Jr. in it.
As if that's some big buildup. We already know. You already
I know, but I mean, there's some really. I mean, we are clearly getting a full X-Men team. Kelsey Grammer, he's obviously back as Beast.
I saw
We're
that.
Fully getting a full X-Men team in this next.
I mean, was there anyone you were actually excited about? Like,
no, and here's why. First of all, I was glad to see Channing Tatum was on it, so he's going to be Gambit. So I'm glad to see we're getting that. Yeah. But I was really hoping for them to relaunch X-Men properly, go back, cast the whole thing again, and do a Marvel X-Men franchise. And now that we're getting...
Yeah, why are they doing this Fox bullshit?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, unless they're trying to close a loop. Like, maybe. You know what I mean? Or they're trying to do a historical thing where they're like, they're all at some table talking about it and they're only in the movie for 20 minutes total. And they're doing flashbacks and they're doing new characters. To me, that makes sense.
I think they're going to do something like that because clearly if Downey Jr. is playing Doom, we obviously have a timeline jump. So I'm hoping.
Oh God, I hope so. I hope so.
Well, it has to be almost. So I'm hoping it's that
Marvel
and that we get. I mean, because Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart are in their 80s. Like, what? I don't know what we're getting out of them. I don't know.
New AARP card? I don't know. I mean,
some sitting down scenes, I guess. Yes. Which I guess Patrick Stewart's every scene sitting down.
Yes.
So I guess he could totally do it. I don't know. We'll see. I think we're definitely going to get some old school flashbacks to the old school X-Men. I'd really like to see them still do a young.
Let me get at you then. After watching all of the what you saw in this little preview announcement video they did,
right?
Going into it, are you more or less excited for the X-Men?
I wouldn't say that you've been affected by excitement. I hadn't really been thinking about it because I hadn't heard much out of Marvel about the X-Men franchise. So, I mean, besides the little bit of Gambit we got last year and Deadpool, I was hoping for another Deadpool movie. I'm not less excited. I'm not more excited. I'm going to see that movie no matter what. Doomsday is definitely going to happen. But they're filming it right now. So I guess we'll see. We'll get it next summer. But
all right, then let me hit you with the question that we can go back on. We're gonna clip this for like a year from now or whatever. What is Chris Bower going to like more? the next X-Men, or Fantastic Four?
That's tough, man. Because that
You like them
Fantastic Four
both.
trailer
You like
is
them both
a
pretty
baller.
similarly, so that's a questionable.
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, actually, we just kind of gave us our own insight. Pedro's on there, which means he has to be Mr. Fantastic. And if they're setting that in the 60s and the Doomsday is set now, this is definitely going to be a timeline jump.
Which would be fine.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a timeline.
I think you have to do that to introduce into the newer character, younger character development stuff.
Yeah.
Like they're going to be talking now, then he goes back and it's that. Like if they go back to that, is it Vietnam? What war is it actually?
In the 60s. They're going back to when the comic was launched.
Yeah, but I'm saying is
like era.
When they're involved in the World War II era, it's Vietnam, right?
Well, yeah, but the rocket era, the space race was early 60s. That's the era they're trying to capture.
Yeah, so like
and that's what was all the vehicles and all that look.
Yeah, but it led into Vietnam, right? In the later comics.
I mean, that era, sure. I mean, the Vietnam era is also started in the mid 60s. So, yeah. I mean, is that why do you bring up Vietnam? Is that something set for Doomsday?
I kind of feel like I thought that was something that they were doing some of the political stuff with X-Men, building off of the Vietnam War with like Wolverine and stuff like that. And I know that like obviously they hit that hard.
All wars though.
Yeah, but I know they hit that hard on like Watchmen and stuff, and I know there's kind of like a similar political thing with X-Men and Watchmen as far as that
honestly,
goes.
I hope they don't. I would rather them focus on comic, timelines and storylines. But I don't care. I'm going to watch it. They're going to get my money. So, do whatever they
don't
want.
need to do. I'll tell you this, for the next at least minimum 4 years, they don't need to touch politics in any movie ever. Period. We get it so much and just in our daily lives.
Yeah.
The movies are supposed to be escapism, and that's something that like when you watch these old movies from the 1920s, 40s, 50s, 60s, like you start watching these classics on Universal and all this, man, you go and you watch this stuff and you're like, this is what a movie is. Like it made you feel something. It made you. Now it's like they're just pumping out for money and it's whatever. Like I miss that old Hollywood, man.
I do too. That's why I'm hopeful about Fantastic Four. It has that flair to it, and I really hope that it does. I'm very hopeful for that. Fantastic Four. I think Doomsday is going to be great.
Yeah.
I really do. I think it's going to be great.
I just don't want
just a massive cast though.
I'm just over. Like we can move on for Robert Downey Jr. I don't see.
Well, no, he's Dr. Doom. No, we're not moving on. They're not going to move on because he's their cash cow. He died. Their next bunch of movies were like, so they're like, oh, we got to bring him back, and we can't. We killed off Iron Man, so
it's not because of Iron Man. It's because the movie sucked. That's why.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean,
literally,
I think the bubble popped at the end of Endgame. We were all in this euphoric, like everything Marvel did, we could not wait to get to.
Now we don't care.
I don't know what happened about Endgame going. It was like, oh, that's the perfect closure. It's really kudos to the Russo brothers. They made a perfect movie. Like they ended this 10-year arc perfectly. And we were like, oh, we never need to see those movies again. And then they kept making movies like that. We're like, no, we're good. Like we already saw the perfect ending. So why would we go watch this again? I think that's what happened.
Outside of Spider-Man, which isn't even related to that in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
Like, we haven't had any great moments since Endgame.
I know. Yeah, really. I know.
It's been boring for the most part.
We'll see. I mean, with a cast that big, it's going to be hard to be boring, but I don't know. We'll see if they still got some magic when it comes out.
They better market the shit out of that because all these movies are doing are breaking even, so they better get ahead of the game on the marketing on that one. Like,
no kidding.
It's crazy
when you spend that much on a movie.
They're probably giving like Robert Downey Jr. like $60 million to show up for like 5 days on set, which is fucking wild.
At least, yeah.
Like he's not going to be there more than a couple.
He could name his price when they came back to him. They were just like, "We need you," and he's just like, "Okay, well, that'll be $100 million." And they're like, "Okay."
Like, do you take cash your shit?
Yeah. Can we Venmo you? Let's do this.
Literally. And you look at like the Venmo record of Disney and Robert Downey Jr., it's just like 5 million, 8 million, 40 million, 60 million.
Like, meme, actually. If you just see like Trevor pays for lawn mowing $30, and then Robert Downey Jr. from Marvel, $120 million.
Yeah,
for services rendered.
And it doesn't get flagged, but yet your little $100 sale to your wife is fucking flagged. You know,
it's in review.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's hilarious.
Anywho, we digress. We're over here rambling about Marvel when we should talk about cons. That's what we do here, right?
At the Con Culture Convo, we are talking about culture in the convo, just not con. So,
well, we saw this week. I saw an announcement from, as many vendors know, but I know all artists in the con industry know about the acrylic wars that have been going on. Two major companies, V1 Tech and Gallery Panda. We've all seen them. They came out 2018 or 2019, I forget which.
Can you give us a history of that for people who aren't as caught up? Some of the ACers that maybe aren't fully in it.
I believe V1 Tech was the first one, and then Gallery Panda started not too long after them. I remember starting to see them. They would get usually 20-foot booths, and they would just put tables up and put little mini easels on the tables. And they would lean these acrylic pieces of art. And they were like generic scenes, like but they were in different colors. They didn't even have lights for the first few shows that I saw them at. And then it was something like I didn't notice them much until right before COVID. I remember they started getting lights. Still same setup, but they started backlighting them, which was the whole point of the acrylic to begin with. And then right after COVID, I remember Lexington Toy Comic Con was the first time I saw.
They didn't backlight them. They front lighted them. They did not backlight them.
Front lighted. Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah.
Either way, I remember that was the first time I saw them building their shadow board booths.
There's only one person in the industry that's backlighting their acrylics.
Okay. Wow. That was that weird self-plug right in the middle of the history story.
Welcome.
But I'm sure you're doing it right.
Yeah. Endorsed by the Pop Cathedral. I'm not bankrupt, so. I'm sorry.
Well, we hadn't gotten to that. Thanks for ruining it.
What do we?
That's where you're working up to. Either way,
little test.
They have been kind of taken over the industry as far as art goes. As I think most people have seen them at any size show. You'll see these giant booths with those black walls, and then they have the lights pointed at the acrylics that are hanging on the walls, all with command strips, all that, yada, yada, yada. This week, we found out that V1 Tech, the original first company, they have filed for bankruptcy, Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So I guess the acrylic wars have finally taken its first victim. Now, they have released a press release saying they're going to come back bigger and stronger than ever. Maybe they will. Wish them all the best. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who knows a little bit about bankruptcy, they did file Chapter 11, which means they get to write off a ton of their debt, cut cost, sell off as many assets as they can, and kind of restructure their company itself to make a comeback. Now, to me, it seems like at that point, they probably should be focusing more on online things, not at conventions, because they do have big setups. They don't seem to want to come off of the big setup. And so if they're doing a 20 by 40 with 8 employees, even at a small show, you're talking about being $20,000 into a show, and they may not perform.
But then they sponsor the shows. They sponsor all their shows, which is an extra sponsorship fee, which is usually thousands.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
We were approached as Anime Town. We were approached by them a couple of times, and it just, to me, it didn't feel right. And I'm not saying it wasn't right for other shows and whatever. That's fine. But clearly, in my opinion, they were just trying to buy out their competition. And as you know, being in this industry long enough, if you care more about your competition than your own brand, you'll eventually lose.
Yeah, and I think that is what killed them. I've heard many stories. So if you guys aren't familiar with their business model, they would go around to all these artists at these conventions. Some of you guys have been approached by them. I know we've been approached by them. And they would get your art to put onto their acrylics and sell it. They didn't make any of the art themselves, so to speak. They weren't artists. They were just doing, selling art. And they would bring in more artists. And I've heard the list, the bankruptcy list. They had to release a list of money they owe.
Yeah.
And apparently everybody in the industry is on this thing. Here's the problem I have with it. And I agree, they could come back and they could restructure. But 9 times out of 10, what happens on these is someone's going to get stiffed on money they owed. and it's
Absolutely.
guaranteed to be every little artist that they've
Mhm.
gotten art from. They're going to pay off their bigger companies, their vendors, their other things first. And there's never going to be enough money to go around. And those little artists that trusted them and gave them their art to sell, they're going to get screwed over. It's
Now, I
just
mean,
how it's going.
I will say this. Now it could have changed, but the number when they approached me in 2021, something like that, and some of my clients is that, they would sell these acrylics for, at the time, they're not selling them now, obviously, as much, but back when the heyday when everything was ripping and roaring in 2021, 2022, they were selling their acrylics for like, what was it? 70, 80, something like that, buy two, get one, something deals. So they're doing like basically 2 for 150 or 3 for 150.
Sure.
So they would
They
pay
were
their
selling something.
artist. They would pay their artist. Now it was then, and this is the only one that I know. It could be different for other people, so I'm not saying it's for everyone. But
Yeah.
they would pay on that sale $4 per acrylic. So you're talking about like 5 to 8, 9%. I mean, if you're not even getting double digit and you're supplying your artwork for them while saturating your own product, your own art.
That was my whole argument with them.
Why?
I mean, I look at this way. Why would we do that?
Let's look at it this way. Let's break down a New York Comic Con, and you sold the rights to 15 pieces that you still sell, but you sold 15 pieces to them, and you go through. Let's just say they sold 100 total of those 15 pieces overall at a New York Comic Con, right? So let's say 5, 6, 7, 8 of each. You sold 100. You're only getting $400 fucking dollars. Like that's not even, but yeah, at the expense of someone possibly walking. And this has happened to me, where they walked up with the artwork from one of my clients, in which I was selling that stuff at the show with my client, and they walked up with 2 of their pieces, like, "Oh, can you sign this?" Blah blah. Like I looked at it, I was like, "You're making $8 off of this." When if we had sold these on metal for $75 each, buy 2 get 1 free, we would be making, basic. We're talking 10x profit at the worst. At the worst of the worst.
It may never be. I wonder. My guess is they probably negotiated with different artists. I'm sure a lot of the smaller artists got a very small fee. They had, for some of the bigger artists that they had to have negotiated a pretty good sized fee. But I know one of them went off and started his own booth. His booths look a lot like theirs.
Yeah.
I've been set up across from other shows, thinking, "Oh, that's a V1 Tech booth," and then I'll see the sign. He has his sign in neon. Right on that, and he clearly left them. I guess that was a year or 2 ago, and he was one of their biggest artists.
Does it start with an O?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
That's correct.
And he's also been out, with a lot of issues happening with him about other people copying his stuff, in which people have said that it's coming back to the other companies they're wholesaling his stuff behind his back to make money back on it. And you could argue that might be one of V1 Tech, it might be someone else. I don't know. They may be just.
It could be. I don't know either.
I mean, this isn't blaming V1 Tech on that one, because they could have easily just been selling stuff to get out of it.
I'm not blaming them at all. I mean, they came up with a business model that is effective. We see people use this business model in our industry. It's not a bad business model, but when you get that big and you're trying to buy out your competition and try to get bigger than your competition.
So I'm going to stop you there. Yeah. So I'm going to stop you there. So for people who don't know, some of the people who are later in the game or never really paid attention, first off, bless you for not paying attention to this kind of stuff, because it's insane. But if you kind of don't have your head in the sand and you look up and you saw, so basically for the last, I'd say from 2020-ish on until 2024, the 2 major acrylic companies were Gallery Panda and V1 Tech. And they went at each other left and right. They did not like each other. They did not want to work with each other. They think each other copied each other on every little thing. They were trying to fight over artists. And that led to them bidding up stupid things like sponsorships and paying artists too much, but then in theory never really paying most of them, offering them the world because they wanted to be the better than the other one. Instead of them just stepping up their game and making it good, they cared so much about what their competition did, it put them both almost out of business. One of them for sure out of business. And you had sponsorship things where like I have a couple of promoter friends where they were offering a stupid amount of money to have exclusive on acrylics. And this is the thing that frustrates me the most. And this is what I've told both people who have come up and talked to me, from representatives from both companies have come to me and talked to me about this. And I said this, I said, because if anybody knows, I with Pop Cathedral, in my last company, I sold acrylics as well. And there was a show in which a very large show in Orlando that they wanted to pay for an exclusive on. Yeah. And the floor manager came to me who knew me, and it was like, hey, like, you can't sell acrylics. I said, yeah, that's not going to work for me. One, I paid for my booth. I put it on my list. You approved me. I'm selling the product that you approved me to sell. Yeah. And I don't care about them. I said, look, they're allowed to sell whatever they want, just like me. And so I'm not going to change my business model because of someone else's thing. I said, if they want to have the exclusive to sell instead of the other company, that's fine. But I don't play by their games. My business is run off of my rules and how I run it. Just like everyone, yours is, theirs is. Everybody should be run off their own business model. 100%. And someone else should never negatively impact your business intentionally.
No.
And trying to
especially
control
not in that way.
Dude, one of them tried to come up to me, telling me that like what they're doing is free market. And I was like, you literally don't know what free market is. If you're trying to tell me
you're trying to eliminate what other people can sell.
You're trying to control a marketplace by controlling an item. That is not free market.
Yeah. And I know Bower and Tim did the exact same thing with the Collecticons over a year ago. They paid $50,000 for exclusivity to acrylic wall art. But the website last year didn't say that until halfway through the year. Everyone just said anime wall art, and myself included, and a lot of people didn't do any other shows because we're like, well, we're not going to get our stuff banned, and they had to change the website again mid-year, just be like, no, this just meant for acrylic, meaning we are paying this $50,000 to make sure that V1 Tech can't get in.
But then we're paying the consequences for it, not V1 Tech. And that's the annoying part, is that these guys don't understand. This is a shout out to V1 Tech and Gallery Panda. If you guys are listening, literally, guys, we should not be trapped in the middle of your guys' stupid little petty bullshit. It's so ridiculous. Like, you fucked with my business. You're lucky I didn't return the favor, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of shows
look at it, does anyone have the same stature as them? Is only V1 Tech. They don't, in other words, they don't mind screwing over all the little guys because that's who they are to them, as little guys, because they want to be the biggest and best in the industry. And it is what it is. You can see that it costs a lot of money to do that.
Chris, there's two ways of being the biggest and the best. There's two models, only two, right? There's being the best. If you're trying to build the highest building in Chicago, and let's say the blank whatever tower is 100 stories, the only way to be the biggest and best in Chicago is to build 101 or taller, right? That's or there's the other model, which they decided to both do. Both Gallery Panda and V1 Tech are both responsible for this. They're both guilty of this. Is they went for the approach of, oh, hey, let's knock down the 100-story building into 65 stories, so we only have to build a 66-story thing. Sure. Oh, and while we're at it, we'll knock down the other one that's 68 right next to us, so we can only. Yeah. And that's not how you do successful business. It's not a good business model. And all the other companies that you knocked down that were 70, 80 stories, 70, whatever, all hate you. They don't want to work with you. They don't want you at their shows. It's not jealousy. It's because you guys have a terrible business model that affects them because you have a
bad attitude about it. Because it really came to head for me 2 years ago at New York Comic-Con when I walked around that sales floor and there was over, 15 or 20 V1 Tech booths, but they weren't called V1 Tech booths. Mm-hmm. They had made a booth for each of the artists that they represent so that you would go and get their product, but of that artist at that one booth. And they must have had 15 or 20 10 by 10 booths on that floor, which cost a fortune. But also, because they just throw money around, companies like that are fine with them having that many booths. That's ridiculous. Yeah. To have 20 booths on New York Comic-Con's floor. Hey, nobody else gets that.
Yep.
We're not allowed. We can barely talk our way into 2 booths if we're lucky.
Yeah. But just letting you know, if you're looking at this, if you got cut or did not get into New York Comic Con last year, it's because of V1 Tech.
Yeah,
straight up.
because they're taking 20 booths off of the floor.
Yep.
All just to sell the same art that they have available at their big booth right in the front of the show.
So you want to hear something really funny about this?
Me.
Let me tell you something, a little insight that I found out. So from a V1 Tech employee currently, they thought that sponsoring and setting up all of these artist booths around the show floor was going to increase their outlook and visibility and basically their viewpoint of vendors and attendees by doing this, and that because they put all of these artists out on the show floor, it would help out the artists and other vendors because it wasn't such a big prominent booth that they spread it out, and they sponsored all of these.
Yeah.
And I looked at this person and I told him, I said, you realize every vendor hates you for doing that, right? Like
every single one.
You guys are fucking delusional. You don't get how this industry works at all. And you don't get it because
that's 20 vendors that didn't get to get into New York Comic-Con
because of you.
That might have sold something really cool that everybody liked instead of yet another version of the same piece of art on acrylic. Like nobody cares about that much.
For example, I know one artist that was featured on that had a booth that did not even know they had it until Sunday.
Are you serious?
Chris, New York Comic-Con. An artist did not know that they were a future artist that have their own booth selling their own stuff until Sunday morning.
I'll bet I know the artist because I also saw that artists there have their own booth. But then a few aisles away, they had another booth. It wasn't manned by them, but it was all V1 Tech.
That is correct. That's exactly the same person we're talking about, and they messaged me and were furious. They were like, "This takes away from my business."
Money out their pocket. Yeah. Anyway, that's I don't wish bankruptcy on anybody, but again, they would wish bankruptcy on all of us. I assure you. They want either us to work with them or they want us to go away. Artists.
It's funny because everyone I've interacted with, Gallery Panda, Rant are all really nice. And that's like the kind of shitty part about this is I wish I could hate them all. I don't. But at the same time, their business practices are what
they're predatory.
The problem
a lot of them are really, really intense.
They're the ones that shake your face, kiss babies. Did I say shake your face? Shake your face. They might shake your face. If you're a baby, shake your baby's faces, shake your hand, give you a hug, tell I love you, blah, blah, and turn around the back beside you and go jump and screw over your business and life. And with a smile on it. And it's just like, come on, guys. You're better than this. If you want to survive, you're going to have to change your model, period.
Well, I just don't understand the model because we look at new artists come into this business all the time. We watch them grow and some of them get really, really popular. But it's never like that where it's like, oh, we're going to have every booth in there, or we're going to be able to sell every art in one spot. Like that was the mentality of, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll have one art booth at this entire show. But granted, it might be different artists, but really the art all looks the same because it's all on the same size acrylic sheet. And I don't know, it took the whole point of fan art is to have this variety. So many different artists respond, or so many different customers respond to different artists differently. And it was just a weird mentality of, we're going to take over all of it and have one booth that sells.
The one thing that both Gallery Panda and V1 Tech were guilty of, and they don't know it until now, is they came in because they're so new. They're ACers in theory, like for the real actual business.
Yeah, because they started right before
they have no clue what the industry was like before the boom. And so they're coming in at the height of it in theory and doing this, and they think it's epic. And if they're barely making money then, how are you going to make money when it goes down like it is right now?
It's the tortoise and the hare, man. You have to be into the long haul. You can't be throwing all your money into every single show. Be like, I'm sure we'll get all this back.
We got you.
And they're doing shows worldwide.
Yes.
Worldwide, sending people around the world.
Yeah, you're going to sit here and tell me that.
But
you're going to sit here and tell me that they made money doing shows in the UK while spending all of that. I mean, can you imagine the freight cost for that? Must have been the import duties. There was a V1 Tech employee that told me one time that she worked the UK show and that they didn't know that they had import duties for it from coming in. And it added like 40% to their cost. And right there that they were like already like cutting it tight. And then they had it sent, and it was held at customs, and they didn't have product for the first day because it was held at customs and they couldn't get it out because they didn't fill out forms right because they didn't know. Yeah, which is, it works when everything's going good. 2021 and 2022, anybody could have done anything and made money. You had tiny little shitty artists that were in it for 1 year that are making $3 or $4 grand at a tiny anime show. Now are making 300 to 500.
Yeah, I know, and that is hard. Again, people, BCers, we enjoyed the boom too. Trust me, it was amazing.
Absolutely,
and we miss it. But it was a boom, and we know what shows bring in normally. And most shows have gone back to that or lower, or sometimes a little above. You never know.
Yeah.
You get those little, bursts, but you have to play the long game. You can't be like, oh, if I don't make 20 grand at the show, I'm going to be in ruins.
Yeah.
And that felt like every show for them was like, we have to make $400,000 this week. And it would be at every con. I don't care how big or small, with a staff of 8 and a huge booth. And I'm like, where do you guys think this money is just going to keep flowing from? It's just, it's not surprising. And I'm not upset by it. Obviously it has nothing to do with me.
No.
But you kind of feel like you could have seen some of this coming.
But if you knew what you were talking about, they're too new to the industry to really have the grasp of like a long-term 10-year type plan because they're in it for 3 years.
Well, but they my guess is they countered that point that you just made with, well, no one's ever done it this way, so there is no data for it, which is true. No one has ever gone into the fan art business and been like, oh, we know how to do it, and done this, this huge takeover is what was attempted. Yeah. And I would say it was very successful for a lot longer than I thought it was going to be.
Agreed.
I kept thinking like, God, this has to be the year where it implodes, and it would just keep going and keep going.
Nope.
So, it took them 5 years after COVID to get to where one of them was going bankrupt.
Personally, I'm absolutely okay with both of them going away, only based off the fact for the controlling of the marketplace mentality.
Yes. Agreed.
If they gave up that mentality, because like I said, I sell acrylics. I'm not changing my model. You would literally.
I don't think they can give up that mentality.
If they came to me at a show and I was already set up and everything, they would have to have police officers drag me out of that building.
Oh, the 2 times I got approached, I was very rude to their rep. I mean, cussed her out. Like, I don't care, because her entire argument was telling me how much better my business would be if they could show me how to do it. Let me tell you something. If you come at me with that mentality, you are not going to get a nice side of me.
Nope.
Because not only is it just so degrading and completely assume that, oh, I'm an idiot and I'm not doing it right. Just go F yourself. Like, there's no way. I had no problem telling her that either.
I've known Chris Bower for 12 years. I think it's 12 years, 13 years now. Something like that.
It's over a decade. Yeah.
I want to say it was 2012. I want to say is when we met. And I can tell right now, I've seen Chris, like angry Chris, only 3 times in that time frame. And I am telling you right now, holy shit, guys, you do not ever want to piss off Chris Bower. Like,
I'm a polar bear.
Dude, his face turns bright red and he starts pacing and he's spiking. I'm like, his veins start coming up. He starts sweating. I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna break somebody in half.
Gonna have a heart attack. That's probably how I'll go out, just yelling at someone in their face.
Yeah, low B1 text could be the death of you, literally. Some random lowly rep. Yeah. I volunteer everyone to get the fuck away from my booth.
I love it. I mean, sometimes you in this business, I'm sure everybody's dealt with this. We see people post on Wave all the time about it, like, oh, this neighbor I had was horrible, blah blah. You have to do that. This is your business. Yeah. You are setting up your business, your brick and mortar every weekend in a different city.
Brick and mortar.
And someone wants you to fail, and sometimes they're set up next to you, and they take steps to try to get you to do it. And the truth is, most people, I think, are genuine and they're in this for the love of it. And they don't want to cause problems or have to have fights with people. Nobody wants that. But sometimes you have to, because you're going to get rolled over. by other people that don't have the same kindness as you do. And when that happens, you got to step up. This is your business. And nobody else can fight for your business.
No one's ever gonna protect you. No one's ever gonna come help you. No one's gonna come save you. And that doesn't mean
keeping their own setup.
Yeah, other businesses, your friends, family, the government, whoever, they're not coming to help you guys. You need to care yourself and put yourself
need to do it
first.
in that moment. Because you only have 2 or 3 days at every show anyway. You have a very small window to defend yourself and your setup, and you've got to be able to step up on a moment's notice and do it.
Yeah, and most of it's just haters that have a loser mentality, and and I hate to say it because I'm not trying to shit talk other vendors, but there's a lot of people are fucking losers, and they want to spread it and that doesn't mean just financially. That just means as a person, as friendly. Like there are a lot of people who are mean, rude. They would rather see other people suffer at their own expense. There's a lot of very successful vendors, some successful artists that literally run their mouth, create drama, and have issues with anybody and everybody because they love the principle of I'm sorry, it irks me even thinking about it. It irks me thinking about it's just it frustrates me.
We're talking about frustrating situations.
Misery loves company. Misery loves company.
It does. Well, it does for certain people. Most people it does. I don't like misery and spreading misery around.
Well, what I'm saying is it comes around to a point where it can spread so much easier than joy, and that's the problem. In today's society.
Well, if you're a negative person, that's because that is your joy. Misery is your joy, and you want that to be spread.
I'm gonna shit on a certain group, but I think VR vendors is getting very close to a teetering point for that. Unfortunately, is it just becomes so negative. Someone ask a normal question. Like not even a stupid question, but ask like a genuine question that's like, hey guys, like I'm new to this. And they're telling them like, hey guys, I'm kind of dumb. Can you help me? And everyone's like, fucking Google, you bitch. And you're like, dude, like relax. Just don't say anything. Like but then there's sometimes like, hey guys, just use a search feature because like they've already reviewed this show 30 times. You don't need to ask it. But like, so there's like that compromise.
Snarkiness. Snarkiness is the new American trait. And we've learned it from social media, but that's how we are now. And we believe having that snarky comment that cuts someone else down is so the first instinct now. And I think people are just a slave to it, and they just can't help themselves. They have to be like, I'm going to show this guy what's up.
It comes down. It comes down to that one word you and I have mentioned on this podcast 1,000 times: entitlement. And it is ageless, it's raceless, it's sexless. Like it does not matter who it is. My God, entitlement. No, it's not at all. Like, stop doing that shit, guys. Nobody likes it at all.
Well, we're kind of talking about that's sort of like this. There was a situation that happened, I guess it was a week ago at KawaiiCon out in Honolulu. It says something to do with it, but the blow up at the end of it is kind of what we're talking about. And again, I wasn't there, so I've seen the video online. I've seen people post about that we're there. It's a very believable situation because I've actually watched situations like this happen, and so have you, and so has anybody that's been in the industry for a few years. But KawaiiCon, apparently, and I have not read their bylaws, but like many anime shows, has a no fan art rule.
Yeah,
now,
so
whether that's
I will tell you right now,
bylaws,
it is no fan art on the vendor floor, only fan art in Artist Alley. Correct.
Which is a very normal thing for you'll see at anime shows. I know Teco in Pittsburgh, that's their whole deal too. Okay, and so that's granted. Apparently, an artist had booked a vendor booth, and by the way, they have a caveat of licensed fan art can be on the vendor floor, but not unlicensed.
How do they even prove that though?
Here's why. Here, I'm going to get to that. I'm mentioning that because I want to get to a point.
Okay.
This artist showed up. She was told your vendor booth, but you have a vendor. You have fan art. Which her argument of, I kind of agree with. When these anime shows jury their vendors, and you can see all my art, why would you give me a vendor booth if you thought my art wasn't acceptable? Either way, apparently there was a disagreement with the vendor floor manager and her. But she apparently knew someone that was above this new vendor floor manager, which ends up being the problem, and got permission to get into an artist alley booth so she could save her show. I'm more power to her, by the way. That's exactly what I would have been trying to do.
So
you don't want to go to Hawaii.
I do have some information on that. So I got information on that yesterday. So, and to QuarryCon's fan art policy, in my opinion, is fucking stupid. Period. End of story.
No, we'll get to that after the story.
They will never defend. I want to put that as an asterisk before I say this. Okay.
Sure.
Because I'm not defending QuarryCon on this one. For that part of it, I will defend on QuarryCon for the fact that they basically, the exhibitor floor manager, I guess, probably realizes that it's an issue more so than it really should be, and that they clearly accepted more people. They moved several people into Artist Alley spots. They were actually approaching Artist Alley artists that did not have anything fan art related. So straight up all their own creations. There's no Dragon Ball Z, there's no Funimation stuff, there's no nothing, right? So they have their own creations of stuff. They approach them to, for free, switch to a vendor space. So therefore the person with fan art could technically go to Artist Alley and they would switch them. And they did that for several people, which is a good thing in my opinion. I like that. That is a very good thing.
That's not normal.
It solves problems, but one of them, which one of them said in one of the Artist Alley groups that I'm in, one of the booths was directly across from our Artist Alley table, and we're talking about 12 feet. And for me, that's where I'm like, this is so stupid.
Well, also, the more obvious point, they made the rule up to begin with. So yes, we have a way to work around it. It's a made-up rule by you. This is not an industry rule. You've made it up.
Yeah.
That is the whole point. But we'll get to that. Let's finish the story first. This girl gets into the Artist Alley. This artist goes through the show.
This is why I got my wine, by the way. Fuck.
Apparently Sunday, the Artist Alley the vendor coordinator came over to her booth and they had an altercation. And so midway through the altercation, this artist pulls out her phone and starts filming. And because she's explaining, and of course the artist or the vendor coordinator quits talking the way that the artist said she was talking to her, which was probably pretty angry and degrading because she had gone over her head or however the situation was. But the artist blacks out during this conversation and falls to the ground. Because, as many of you guys know, artists are obviously very sensitive beings, and you will see this a lot. They are more prone to anxiety and other things. I don't know why, but it's just part of being artistic, I guess. We all know so many people like that, and they usually have a pretty good artist side to them. So I don't know if there's science out there to support it, but it's very common, I think. And most people do not like altercations. Most people are very passive. And this altercation was obviously too much for this artist. She passed out. She woke up vomiting, and the video kept rolling, but you couldn't see anything. You could just hear everything was happening. Either way, this situation was all started because of this stupid fan art rule. And you'll see these at all kinds of anime cons across the nation. Only anime cons, by the way, where they I think Funimation and some of the other licensing companies will send out letters, I assume, or tell them that, hey, you should not allow fan art. Yeah, they say that to everyone, but for some reason, only artists.
Can I interject in this? Have they ever actually done that in the last 10 years? Because
I have no idea.
For companies to do that, but you look at all these huge shows. The only one I personally know, and I mean personally, I can 100% verify that happens, is it does happen at Hallmat. They do, but it's just literally.
It happens at all the other shows too, but
it
I think it happened once.
No power. I'm telling. Why? I own an anime show. I've never been contacted.
I know. However, let's look at Left Field Media.
5 shows, maybe. Maybe.
Well, you're not big ones. I mean, big ones, there's some big anime shows that have this policy. And I mean, New York City's one of them.
Yeah.
Or NYC. Okay, but that's, I say that, and this gets me to my other point. The licensing of fan art. We all know how much of a scam that is. I'm not saying all licensing is. I'll just tell you this. The industry, I guess, backdoor workaround at licensing that most artists know about is you license 1 or 2 pieces of art from some little company, pay the couple grand, and then you say all your art's licensed. That's what these guys are doing.
Yeah.
So the reason I bring that up is I watched a walkthrough video from KawaiiCon, and I saw 2 giant art booths on the vendor floor with tons of fan art. We all know who they are. And I'm not talking about Gallery Panda and V1 Tech. And you're looking at them, you're like, I know for a fact you guys did not license every damn.
Nope.
You have 100 prints on your backdrop.
Yeah.
They are not all licensed.
Nope.
And sure, you might be able to work out some bulk deal. I don't know. But we all know the bullshit workaround. And that's probably what they're doing. I don't have that confirmed, so I'm not going to say it. That's why I'm not going to name them. But
I watched a walkthrough video, and I would say at least off of my knowledge of running an anime con and having to deal with this bootleg shit, as well as the fan art side of things, I would say 30% of the vendor show floor had bootlegs and fan art right off the rip. And this was on like Saturday when the person had their walkthrough video. And so, which means I haven't been again. And like, no offense, if you guys are so loud and proud about fan art, why aren't you walking through to all these bootleg fucking plushies that are everywhere? Why are you not walking all these bootleg Gundam Wing collectibles? Like all this stuff you guys see.
Let's just stick with the artwork.
It's
why
silly.
are you asking them to list their licenses and show them proof? Because nobody does. You say, hey, is your art license? Oh, yes.
Oh, of course.
And then they never follow up. And that's why I bring up Anime NYC. Left Field started their Anime Frontier in Houston and Anime NYC in
Dallas.
bold print on there. And oh yeah, that's right. They're all about not allowing fan art. And you watch any walkthrough videos on Anime NYC.
Everywhere.
I know 10 vendors there that are selling the same stuff I'm selling right on the vendor floor. But I'm not there because it says there's no fan art allowed.
Yeah.
It grinds. And again, I could lie. I could do exactly what they're doing. I'm not going to act like that I'm not above it. I choose not to do it. There's always another con every weekend that you're anywhere. My whole point is, this is a bullshit made up rule by these cons for no reason whatsoever.
Why?
Do what?
Why do they do it?
I don't know, but they do.
I
don't know why it's there.
So let's get down to the other part of it, which is my personal gripe with it. It's a little bit more than yours. Mine's a little bit different of it. In my humbled opinion, with 2 business degrees, running shows, been in this issue for a while, and have researched the living shit out of this topic, anime conventions do not legally have the power to enforce someone else's IP at all. And I mean zero. In theory, from what I've seen in a couple of court cases, and there's not many, unfortunately, but in a couple of cases and lawsuits and just random kind of issues that have happened, if you speak to lawyers who have experts on this, they would argue that a convention enforcing their own IPs is technically more illegal than fan art.
They have no reason to. They have no connection to the IP.
No, it's not a reason in any way, shape, or form. It's the legal issues of it. Do not, unless if Funimation, Sony, Marvel, whoever it is, comes to you and says, hey, you need to enforce this. You need to make sure they remove it all. Or we're going to send you cease and desist. Okay, cool. They have every right to do that, but they need to send their lawyer representation to do that.
And they do that in New York Comic Con. But look how we all still sell there.
Correct.
So it just shows you that those lawyers are there and they don't have an issue.
So, but my point is they're the ones that have to do it, not the Anime Con or the con itself. Now, mind you, for example, at Hall, I know for a fact that they have a video, they do a walkthrough video, and a lawyer watches the video and says, you need to have that, ask that person to take down that. To me, that's fine. I don't have any problem with it. So
I've got approached at Otakon before the same way.
You need to come and take down the Dragon Ball Z piece. Yeah. Okay, great. How about everything else? We're fine. Okay, great. Take it down. You don't ask any questions. You move on. That's it. And
that's how it should be.
But a random convention saying that you can't have fan art. Look, there's 2 ways to obviously legally with this. You have the legal bounds of you are not allowed to enforce someone else's IP. That is illegal. Period. So you're misrepresenting another company.
Even if you're doing it as a favor to that company, like someone that runs the company.
Still not legal.
What's the point? Well, it may not be legal, but again, we also know that it doesn't matter. It's the same reason that it doesn't matter that we have no rights as vendors because we have no vendor union because we can't. because there's no way we could get everybody on the same page.
No.
It matters because they can blackball you.
The second part,
that's always the fear. They just never answer your email.
Oh, dude, after this, you're not getting a QuietCon. So,
I wouldn't say anything bad about QuietCon. My point is, the QuietCon's not the problem. It's the overall thought process by these anime conventions that they have to somehow bow down to these anime companies that are just licensing animes from Japan. They're not making the content either, but they're over here trying to enforce it in America. And it's a ridiculous. You don't see Comic-Cons ever doing this. But yet we all sell at the same one. So why is it legal at one and not legal at the other? And now, to support your point,
I will say
nothing
this.
to do with legality.
So yeah, the other way is they do have a legal bounds to technically kick out somebody of something that they don't agree with because it's on private property.
Sure. They own the property for that weekend.
That's where they hold the bullshit thing over your head.
Of course.
Which sucks. I mean, we've had to deal with something where someone was being inappropriate. We had to kick out somebody at one of our shows. So like we had to get a sheriff here and blah, blah. It was annoying as thing, but they were being inappropriate with somebody else and they had some stolen stuff and like, you know, we knew we had evidence, whatever, and like we gave it to the sheriff and they decided to remove them, not us. Right. It wasn't a big deal, honestly. It took about 20 minutes and it was done and the person was gone and they were nice about it, but like it could have gone really bad. But like no one fainted, no one almost died or whatever. But like I just feel like the guidelines clearly need to be insanely hit over the head 10 times X, because it's not fair to this artist that they had to have health issues for whether you agree with it or not, the anxiety thing and all that stuff like that. Like it's not fair to them to put them into that situation when you control the situation in which they are. You could have just ignored it. I saw their booth. It's not a 30 by 10 monstrous booth. Man. It was a small booth.
No, they had some of those booths on their vendor floor.
Correct.
But I'm sure all they said was, "Oh, is your art licensed?" Yes. Cool. Thanks for being here. And you can have this 20-foot booth. Come on. It's a ridiculous rule.
I think it's an old rule from like pre-COVID that was a thing.
Yep.
I
still don't know why.
I do know from personal experience, like if you guys ever, and I know a couple of our listeners do attempt to go to, there's the con job. I know Ryan, Dylan, and stuff. They've done some international shows. You know, I've done some international shows. I know for a fact the UK, Europe, they're crazy on IP. I'm shocked that they've gotten away with like the stuff that they have before, because like they stuff where like if you import it, you have to have a sticker from the importing company. So like if you import product, they know it's fake right away if you don't have the sticker right away. Right. They will go. They have import duty officers at these Comic-Cons that walk around and they'll be like, "Can I see that box right there?" and turn around and look at the sticker and they go, "Okay, cool, it's verified," and move on, whatever. But there's a lot of times where the last MCM London I did, they kicked out like 25 people from that show. Wow. And you know, I like as soon as I found out that they were doing it,
get kicked out.
Oh boy, yeah. And the artist next to me was like, "Hey, these guys are coming around. Like, I see you have some like Batman stuff, some other stuff." Like, I put that away, and I was like, okay, so like I redid my wall, made everything on my like display, like, you know, non-IP stuff, not whatever, and I had it in the book. And then when they walked up, I took the book off the table and only had like the regular stuff I had that was an IP. And they're like, "Oh, this is so great." One of them even bought stuff, and I was like, "Oh God, please don't look on the website." I was like, "Make sure to not include a card in there." You know? But like that stuff's great. They're not doing that in the US, guys. They're not.
They never have.
No, they haven't.
Fan art's been around for 80 years, as long as cons have been around.
Yeah.
And granted, the boom has been the last 20 years, sure. Yep. But it still supports their brand. Fan art, most of these companies look at it as, if it's good, and that is their only requirement, if it's good, they feel like it just spreads their brand even farther. And they're right, it does.
I personally only experienced one person ever get shut down from IP-related stuff at a con recently, like post-COVID. Okay. Yeah. So it was at WonderCon. Okay. In 2021 or 2022, one of those years. And the guy next to me, I was set up. He came in late. Like the show's already started. He started setting up really quick. And I go to the bathroom. I come back. I looked at his stuff. And he had literally the most inappropriate things I've ever seen for art.
Oh, yeah.
So he had like like Donald Duck railing Mickey Mouse with like a strap
I've seen
on.
a vendor like
And
that.
I'm like, oh, dude,
does
this is bad.
versions of stuff
Like,
like
you're
that.
doing this in Anaheim? Are you out of your fucking mind?
Like, if you're gonna do that, you need to be doing that at small cons, because big cons, they are gonna take that down in a heartbeat.
And that's when we're like, literally, I looked at the guy, he's looking at my stuff, he's like, oh, it's pretty good stuff. And so I look at his stuff to like kind of felt like I was returning the favor, looking at stuff. And I was like, bro, I'm like, you're like, you crazy for doing this in Anaheim.
You better enjoy your one day at WonderCon.
And I was like, dude, this is crazy. He's like, dude, they can't touch me. Who's so I was like, okay, bro. And then literally,
there's a difference between doing fan art and then just poking the bear with a knife.
This guy walks up, and I'm telling you, this guy's fucking mortified. He looks up at his eyes are big, and he comes up to my booth, starts looking at stuff, and he's on his phone. I could tell he's waiting for a phone call, and he's just killing time at my booth. And he's flipping through, asking some questions, and I'm like, and he's looking over there, and he's looking back, and I'm like, hey, you have a problem with that shit, don't you? And he's like, and I'm like, do you work for Disney? He goes, yeah. And I go, okay. And I'm like, I told him, and he told me to fuck off and that you guys can't do anything. And he's like, oh, really? He's like, hold on. And he was like, kind of like, he was like very feminine gay, and pulled out his phone, and he's like, oh, I'll get him. And he calls him, and he's like, no, this guy's got this shit. I'm sending you pictures right now. And he's like, literally walked up to the guy's booth and just started taking all these pictures. The guy's like, hey, don't take pictures of my booth, And he started taking, and he sent it to all within an hour. He walks over, this guy walks to the booth, and he looks at me, winks at me, walks up to the booth, and they just start yelling at the guy, and they start handing him paperwork. This guy's in a full suit, handing him paperwork, and then literally like 5 feet behind him, there's a sheriff, a police, and like 3 security. And so they go, he's like, no, I can't fuck you. And they're like, okay, you gotta leave. Sorry, like if you want to take it down, you gotta leave. And he's like, I don't want to fuck you guys. You can't do anything, blah, blah. And so he literally goes, fuck you, you fucking Disney faggot. And I was like, wow, whoa, you cannot. I even walked out my booth and like did like the look around. Everybody around was like paused and looked. Wow. And it was the most bothered with this sheriff was like this big ass black dude, walked right in, grabbed the dude by the back of the fucking neck, carried him out of the booth, and they hogtied him and carried him out. And they're like, that is verbal assault, you are threatening us,
poking the bear,
and you're out. And he goes, he goes, I don't know who that's directed towards, but if I felt like it was directed towards me as officer, so I get to react to it. And he hogtied him. They took them out. They came to the booth the next day. Like it was towards the end of the day on Friday, and on Saturday morning I came back, and these guys had a wheelie dumpster like 2 hours before the show started, and just threw everything from that guy's booth into the dumpster. It was so epic.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff that's going to happen if you're going to be sitting there doing that. I mean, if you're doing like that, the illicit stuff, you have to know what's coming. I mean, it's insane. But either way, this fan art rule is something that is a thing in the industry, as most of you guys know about. We're going to continue to see it. There is no good reason for it. I'm sure many lawyers would tell us, oh, here's the reason. Well, then it should be at all cons, and it's not. So it is a useless rule. And it's sad that it causes something that much anxiety to someone that they would pass out and have to be taken to the ambulance, to the hospital in Hawaii, and just losing out on the money there. I mean, it doesn't, either way. My point is, if you run an anime con and this is your rule, rethink it, because you have no reason to have it.
No.
And I would love to hear the reason if you think you do have a good reason.
I would put in my contracts, if I was one of them, that if a company that owns the IP sends us any type of information that they need to remove it from your booth personally, that you are required to remove it, or you'll be removed from the show. I think that's a simple thing, and I don't know how you can argue that. I can argue that. You can argue that. No. That's a bona fide no-brainer.
They own the IP. They're allowing you to do fan art of it until they're not.
And then you got to go abide by it, and that's it. Yeah. It's done.
But if you've never had a problem, you're not usually going to have a problem. So when you run into a con that says, oh, no, you can't sell that, it doesn't make any sense if you've been in this business selling it for years.
Yeah.
So it's just a ridiculous rule that we could obviously pontificate about for another 2 hours.
Oh, God, yeah.
We're an hour here. So we're going to let you guys off.
Yeah.
Off the hook here.
I need to refill some juice. So
Yeah, Tim needs some of his Jesus juice, and isn't that what Michael Jackson called it? What did he call it?
It was water
Was it
at
a
one
Diet
point.
Cocaine?
So, yeah.
That was turned into wine. Okay.
I'm
Thanks
all
for
with this. I'm like,
post below.
Oh,
Tim's drunk.
good. There
Post below in the comments any of your stories about what we've been talking about or comments. We'd love to hear from you guys. And we'll see you guys on the next Con Culture Convo.
Join the convo, guys.